Evening and welcome to the first hybrid meeting of the executive. Here tonight are myself as the leader of the council, John Kaiser as the deputy leader and executive member for finance and housing, Harry Bath, the environment and leisure, Graham House sends his apologies, Pauline Jorgensen, highways and transport, Charles Margetts, health, well-being and adult services, Stuart Monroe, business and economic development, Gregor Murray, resident services, communications and admissions, and Wayne Smith, planning and enforcement, and Bill Soane, neighbourhoods and communities. I don't know whether this is actually relevant nowadays. Please ensure any mobile devices or mobile phones are switched off. And if you're participating via Teams, when you're not speaking or being asked to speak, please mute your microphones. If you do not mute your microphones, it will be muted for you. To assist people viewing the meeting, could everybody participating via Teams turn off their cameras and only turn them on when speaking, and also introduce themselves when they speak? Could members of the executive please raise their hands whenever you wish to speak? Please note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. As I said, there are apologies from Graham Howe. Before I start, I'd just like to make a few remarks, if I may. Welcome to the first executive meeting of the municipal year. We are now in the 16th month of COVID, and things are now inexorably returning to normal. We are also a year away from the horrific murders of James Furlong, Joe Ritchie Bennett, and David Wales in Forbury Gardens, Reading. Please join me in a moment's silence for them and for those who have died during this dreadful pandemic in Wokingham, the UK and all around the world, and those who have suffered not just the effect of the virus itself, but the problems which have accompanied it. Thank you. As you're aware, we have had an increase in corona cases of the Delta variety. We responded with surge testing and surge vaccinations, a truly magnificent effort mounted at very short notice, and all credit to our officers. As of lunchtime today, we had 300,288 jabs done at Bullmarsh, 17,544 PCR tests, including residents, schools and businesses, which have resulted in 46 positive cases who were people without symptoms. These individuals are now isolating. 14,441 doors were knocked on in 4 wards, and 1,000 vulnerable adults supported with testing. 33 families were visited by children's services and 931 businesses contacted. Case rates peaked at 96.4 on the 7th of June and is now down to 74.8 on the 18th of June. It is difficult to know what the rates would have been if we had not undertaken all this work, but the upward trajectory we were on was alarming, to say the least. So without doubt, it made a significant impact. Since the last executive, we've had local elections, and they were a demonstration of our residents' faith in this Conservative administration. Our majority has stayed the same, despite the opposition's confident predictions of no overall control. We won a larger share of the vote than any other party, and our share went up. So how does the expression go? Our Conservatives are winning here. I'm delighted to see that we are now not only the healthiest local authority, but also the most prosperous, having for a long time been one of the most desirable places to live. This is despite being the lowest funded with the lowest level of deprivation. A huge testament to this administration, but not for a moment, not a moment for complacency. Whilst I'm leader of the council, the executive will strive every day to make this borough the greatest, safest and happiest place to live, work and bring up a family. This is a wonderful borough with a great future. We have some of the finest officers and directors, well led by the chief executive. We have a huge, ambitious and detailed programme to deliver for our residents, and I wish to highlight just one in this preamble, the local plan. I imagine the flawed but persistent public criticism of our finances was to ensure that on gaining control, the opposition could disingenuously claim that magically our finances had been instantaneously fixed. Let me repeat, there is nothing to fix. Our finances are strong, transparent and in rude health, as you will see later on this evening. I'm a great believer in democracy, which needs to have an administration, an opposition and a free press. Ideally, the administration must have a track record of delivering, be solid in a crisis like the pandemic, be stable, have a great plan for the future, be experienced and professional. We are blessed in having such an administration. The opposition does not have to have, nor does it have, any of these attributes. They can look both ways at the same time. We are blessed in having such an opposition. We are also blessed in having a vibrant press. Some roles are semi-judicial. Recently, members appear to have taken a political stance rather than a judicial one. Members of the planning committee must decide. This will not please everybody and may not please anybody, but they need to do so. Abstentions on party lines make a mockery of the process, much to the disdain of the public. Nationally, both the Liberal Democrats and the Tories committed to building 300,000 homes per year in the end of 2019 manifestos. It is disingenuous to pretend that this is a new Conservative policy. The Labour Party committed to regenerate housing and building 1 million new homes, which is more or less the same as the other parties. There is a consensus within the Borough Council that whilst we note Parliament's apparently settled view, the minimum of these new homes should be in Woking Borough, consistent with our need to provide more affordable housing and social housing. There is no conflict between the climate emergency agenda and the housing agenda. We must do both. The administration has recently published its housing and its 145 plus 100 strategies. We also worked very hard last year to successfully dissuade the government from a housing number which would have been more than 1,600 per annum to a more reasonable number between 600 and 800. We are still working on whittling down this number. Being the healthiest and most prosperous local authority with the lowest deprivation and great schools is a great success, a testament to 19 years of Conservative administration. However, there is a downside, which is that it is a very desirable place to live. I doubt there is a square inch of the borough which does not have a developer's option on it. To counter the threat of unrestrained speculative development, we cannot just say we won't allow it, as this position will be overturned. We must have a current local plan which conforms to the criteria of the time. We will be presenting one in the autumn. We will engage in a community-led approach, putting local residents at the heart of the system, where residents are taken notice of and listened to, not taken for granted or even worse, simply ignored, and certainly not a free for all for landowners and developers, I quote. Opposition to this plan will be support for unrestricted development, which is entirely irresponsible and will be a developer's charter. Local authorities have taken a different view, mostly Lib Dems, have found that their planning decisions have been taken out of their local authority hands and placed with the MHCLG. And speculative development has been permitted by the planning inspectorate in the absence of a local plan. Failure to develop a local plan, as the opposition suggests, will ensure that decisions are not made by local residents and communities, but by developers, the planning inspectors and the MHCLG. Wbc opposition leader will ensure that homes will be dumped near you. Tonight is again a very full agenda, so if I can come to that. But before I do, I just invite Charles Margetts to make a few comments on the vote. coronavirus crisis.
Thank you, John. Just wanted to really pick up a couple of points. I mean, John's been over the key statistics, which are very impressive, and a testament to all the hard work that's gone on here. It's worth remembering, it's only Monday the 7th of June that surge testing started in Wokingham. On that day, we wrote to the CCG and the regional director of the NHS saying we had surge testing. It was now time for surge vaccination. The Friday of that week, surge vaccination was approved. The Tuesday, we had our surge vaccination centre open and jabbed around 300 people. This has been an incredible effort by all the staff basically connected to the council, our partners in the NHS, and all those people who've worked with us. And I want to extend my real thanks for this cooperation. The vaccination centre has, as John said, jabbed so far 3,288 people. We saw some data from the NHS, though, which showed the real difference that this has meant in the wards where COVID was strongest, which is vaccination rates in the 18 to 24 age group have gone up from around 16-17% to over 50% in 2 weeks, which is real evidence on the ground of concrete that we all know the only way to defeat this is vaccination. And it's real evidence of the concrete process, the progress this has made. Now, our surge testing programme has found 46 positive cases. I think it's worth noting again the importance of surge testing, that this means there were 46 people in the borough carrying COVID who did not necessarily know they had it. And each one of those could have spread it to 2, 3, possibly more people. You know, thanks to this, we've managed to identify these people and they're now isolating, and we wish them a speedy recovery. The other side of the coin, though, is that with nearly 18,000 tests back and only 46 cases even, not outbreaks, it means we do not have an uncontrolled runaway situation here. You know, the case rate is beginning to come down. You know, we must remain watchful and, you know, cautious going forward, basically, but the situation is coming under control. Obviously, finding these 46 cases means the case rate over the next week or two may rise slightly as they work through the figures, but this is not a cause for alarm. I think in summary, I would say, again, my thanks to all the partners who've worked with us to deliver this. And, you know, any advice we can give to people, which will be familiar to many in the borough already, to stop the spread of COVID, a lateral flow test twice a week at home, which will be familiar to anyone who's got children at secondary school. Get vaccinated as soon as you can. If you're offered the opportunity, go and get the vaccine. It's the only defence. And if you are asked to isolate, please do it properly. But thank you very much.
So back to the meeting. May I ask members for the agreement to both sets of minutes? Anybody propose that? Can somebody second it? Gregor, Pauline? Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? I would like to declare an interest on the financial report. We're talking about this support of COVID support, in that I'm the treasurer of Upper Thames Rowing Club who received COVID support.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to also say I am a director of unremunerated director of the housing companies and the holding company. And although I don't think there's anything in this paper, I always declare that at the beginning of each meeting.
Any others?
Yes, I'd likewise non-executive director of the holding company.
Wayne?
Same for me, holding company.
Thank you. Now we come to public questions. Dan Hinton of Gregor.
Ross. Hello, good afternoon. So this is a question for Councillor Gregor Murray. Like many interested parties across the borough, the members and followers of Green Wokingham are looking forward to WBC running one or more local deliberative processes. Can you tell residents what progress has been made in determining which LDPs are right for our climate emergency, and what are the likely topics of these are going to be?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Hinton. Local deliberative processes aim to help us better understand the views of our residents and community groups on the council's response to climate change. Tackling the climate emergency in Woking will require active participation from our residents, all of whom have a big part to play in delivering the big changes that are needed on our journey to decarbonisation. Through the right consultative and participative methods, the Council will be able to hear their voices, collect their views, and gather insight to inform future decisions. To advise on which deliberative processes to use, significant research and consultation have been undertaken both internally and externally. 15 community engagement options recently used for climate emergency were reviewed and scored based on the policy stage, length of the process, number of participants, participant selection, delivery form and cost. These include crowdsourcing, citizens' assemblies, juries and panels, advisory groups, polling, e-panels to name but a few. This comparison not only highlights the breadth of options available, but also enables us to identify the most suitable solutions to use to engage the community with our different aspects of the climate emergency agenda. Successful case studies from other local authorities engaging residents with climate emergency were sourced to demonstrate the potential effectiveness of these approaches. These examples vary in terms of the number of residents involved, the length of process, the cost of delivery. They also produce similar results on engaging the community, producing recommendations and actions, and informing the climate emergency panels. Following this research, a detailed proposal to deliver community deliberative processes is being developed, which will come towards this executive in coming months, to provide comprehensive information on how these methods will be set up and delivered. Some of the potential topics for discussion will reflect the behaviour change needed to achieve net zero, and this includes our vision for future living across Woking Borough, modal shift in transport, reducing energy consumption through behaviour, technology and home improvements, reducing the amount of waste we generate and improving our recycling behaviours, reducing food waste and supporting sustainable consumption, and also conscious consumption, so shopping local, using less plastics, avoiding fast fashions and taking staycations. This process will involve a diverse and unbiased range of participants to obtain the best quality feedback from balanced discussions. The results will then be openly fed back into the council and also back to the community.
Do you have a supplementary, Daniel?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Murray. That was a good update. Can I put a request in that we look at how we can increase biodiversity in the borough and see if we can get this as one of the subjects of the early LDPs as you go forwards. Thank you.
Yes, I can certainly confirm that we can do that. I think it's a great thing to add to our list of local deliberative processes for the future. Increasing biodiversity is really important to us as a council. So yes, absolutely. I think getting our residents' views and opinions on how we do that will be very valuable to our community and our climate emergency going forward.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Nick Dwyer. Is Nick Dwyer here? No? Then you'll get a written answer. Thank you. Thank you, Anne. Gary, you to me.
Yes, I'm here, John. Thank you.
It's lovely seeing you. You look in rude health.
I'm not feeling it. I can assure you that. It's well, if I wake up in the morning, I'm alive. It's progress. Anyway, the reason for my question is that I attended a briefing on Hall Farm, and there were figures quoted on housing numbers there, and then you quoted different numbers in the press. And I just really tried. So my question may be a bit confusing, but trying to get around these two different figures. Anyway, my question is: I participated in a workshop recently, which looked at building over 4,500 houses, 3 schools, the community centres, new roads, etc. at Hall Farm, stretching from Arborfield to parts of Winnersh. When asked, a senior officer at the workshop suggested the evolving local plan was to provide 700 to 750 houses a year up to 2036. But in the local Woking paper, you are quoted as stating the number each year will be in the region of 14,000 plus. Now that figure is wrong, to 2036. Was the 700 to 750 housing number what the council would like to put in Hall Farm, and in Winnersh and the 14,000 plus housing numbers, the number for the borough as a whole? And can the leader of the council update me on the actual or approximate housing numbers the council are planning for the borough in the evolving plan to 2036? Thank you, John.
First of all, I'd just like to point out, Gary, that I can't be responsible for what's printed in the press. But that aside, as the mastermind behind the current plan, you are well aware what the paradigms around a local plan process are. Indeed, you were the executive member to whom could be attributed the 4 SDLs and all the development for the last decade. I can therefore assume you're familiar with the process. You are also correct in describing the local plan as evolving. Government policy requires all local authorities to set out plans to deliver new housing, and Woking Borough Council is no different. This is a central issue to be grappled with through the new local plan. Unfortunately, due to the change in the emergency planning arrangements around AWE Burfield, we are no longer able to rely on providing for most of the new housing need through the creation of the Graiseley Garden Town, as proposed in the draft local plan consultation last year. And we are having to review alternative possible approaches. The meeting you attended is part of an evidence gathering exercise considering how development might be managed on a strategic scale should this approach be taken. Information on this process is available on our website. I should stress at this juncture that no decisions have been made as to what the alternative approach will be recommended for consultations, and all options remain on the table. Returning to your question, the figures you quote are confusing. The amount of housing the government requires to be built each year within Woking Borough with the amount of housing that needs to be managed by the local plan over its entire period. You will recall that last year the government-wide paper proposals were that Woking Borough would have to provide in excess of 1,600 per annum, which with buffers would have been around 2,000 per annum. You were sceptical that this would and could be eased, but a Conservative administration is capable of having a dialogue with a Conservative government, and I can say without fear of contradiction that the policy was abandoned because of our opposition. At the time, it was said that I was notorious in Whitehall. The applicable government policy calculates the amount of housing a local authority needs to enable through a standard method. For Woking Borough, the standard method currently calculates the housing need as 768 dwellings per year. This figure is recalculated each year, as you know, but it has generally been in the range of 760 to 820 dwellings. You may recall that when you were lead member for planning at the time, the 2010 local plan was accepted with a figure of 623 new homes per year. The draft local plan we consulted on last year covered the period 2018 to 2035-36, an 18-year period. 768 dwellings per year for 18 years is just under 14,000 dwellings. There is no requirement to provide 14,000 dwellings each year. For completeness, much of the required 14,000 dwellings will be met from sites which already have planning permission. For example, 9,000 dwellings have already been completed, are under construction, or have planning permission as part of the 4 strategic development locations defined by your adopted core strategy local plan in 2010 when you were instrumental. I'm in discussions with MHCLG to ameliorate the requirement by seeking a clarification on exceptional circumstances and the 5-year land supply. Consultation on the new local plan is anticipated in the autumn. Do you have a supplementary, Gary?
Yes, thank you for that, John. I was looking at the Woking Borough Council Managing Development Plan, local plan document, which was adopted in February 2014 and was signed off by the then executive member for planning, which was Councillor Keith Baker. And looking at Appendix 14, it makes reference to South Wokingham SDL and the requirement to build 2 for 2,490 houses by 2026, which is the end of the plan. I think the same line would apply to all the 4 SDLs. I attended a planning meeting, a briefing on South Wokingham and its evolution fairly recently, and in that they said once planning, the developers and the officers said that once planning permission had been granted for the remainder of the work, it would take at least 10 years to complete the project. Well, if all of those houses are supposed to be built by 2026, 10 years on takes it up into 2030, 31, 32. And this really will apply, I would think, to all the SDLs. So my concern is, and the question is, if you lump the houses, the incomplete houses in the existing local plan, will they be added to the numbers that you'll be agreeing in the new local plan? And so whatever the number will be, it'll be plus all of the incomplete ones in the existing local plan. Thanks, John.
I think you're assuming parts of the evolving local plan, which is yet to evolve, and I think that you have to wait that position unless Wayne is capable of adding anything.
No, I think you're right, Gary. I think the issue we've had in South Wokingham is the delay in getting the scheme off the ground. So I think you're right, but it won't be in addition to. They will be negative. Well, there'd be negative numbers off the overall plan.
Imogen. Imogen, is Imogen here?
I am. Hello. Hello. Would you like me to read my question?
Go on then. It's lovely to hear your voice.
Thank you. Thank you there, John. Okay. Having looked at the recovery strategy document that you're going to discuss in this meeting, I'm having trouble seeing what Woking Borough Council are doing over and above the business as usual items that are mentioned in this document. And the document seems to cover the work that Woking Borough councillors would be doing anyway, but it does not demonstrate what additional funding is being made available to help local businesses recover and how it might be used. I mean, even Wokingham Town Council has managed to find funding for advertising and banners promoting the business in Wokingham Town Centre, but at this critical time, we have seen no wider help at all from Wokingham Borough Council. Please, can you identify what additional funding is being allocated to business recovery and how is it going to be used? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. In sending you our proposed recovery strategy earlier than the usual date of distribution, I was hoping you would come up with something useful that you could expand on the comprehensive recovery strategy we already have in place. Sadly, you haven't. But it is really good to have Wokingham Town Council coming to the party, albeit late in the day. Taking your specific point regarding Wokingham Town, rather than just hang up some bunting and banners, we will continue to regenerate the town centre in the context of business recovery at a total investment of approximately £150 million. This will involve working hard with our resources to bring in attractive retailers by encouraging them this is a great place to come and set up a business. We have already been successful in doing this during the pandemic. We will continue to administer support schemes available to businesses and ensure our businesses across the whole borough receive any restart support available in addition to the 66 million support we have already distributed. Additional staffing resources have been secured to reach out to our businesses in this regard. We know that one of the best ways to bounce back is to create vibrancy within the town, which we will do through attracting desirable retailers, as I previously mentioned, creating the right environment and facilitating events to draw people in. Our regeneration activity will include the completion and sale of the homes we are building around Elms Field and surrounding areas, a new hub for leisure, swimming and other events, including a new library. You will also be aware from this agenda that we are even investing sizably in a boxing hub in the town centre, which we are expecting to be of great appeal to across the ranges and genders. All of this is considerable investment resource will be directed into building out the town centre assets and facilities to create an attractive business environment. supporting current businesses to bounce back, attracting desirable retailers and facilitating the environment and events to draw people into the town. These endeavours stretch into hundreds of millions of pounds and are without a doubt on top of business as usual for any local authority. But we know this is the right thing to do, as our businesses deserve every opportunity to rise and thrive following such a difficult time. Who knows, we might also put up a bit of bounting. Do you have a supplementary for me?
I do. Your answer doesn't really answer my question. In that there was no budget line in the budget that we had in February to talk about recovery at all. And I know that there's been grant funding from central government and that's been distributed, and that's great. But I want to know what additional costs the COVID recovery is having on Wokingham, and I don't see any sign of that in this report. And I wasn't aware that we were allowed to comment on this report. It seemed to have got dumped on us, so this is why we are asking the question now.
Yeah. What was the question?
What the question is what, aside of the grants that central government has given us, what funding has come from Wokingham Borough Council? How much money has it cost us for this COVID recovery plan? Because it wasn't in the budget for this year.
I correct you. It's all in the budget. We've been working on the recovery plan for the last 12 months, and it's all encompassed in the MTFP. But as I said, I'm delighted to hear the Wokingham Town Council is finally coming to the party. As far as I can tell, both Wokingham and Early Town Councils have slept for 16 months, having delegated all the functions to the officers. There is no evidence that either body has done anything material in that time. Whilst not doing anything, it has kept all the officers on full pay at the residents' cost. No identifiable furlough has occurred, and no recovery plan which has been published. It is appalling that two Early Town Council have not in 2 years been able to finish the transfer of Sibley Woods, Park Woods and grass areas from Persimmon Homes, while suggesting they should be custodians of more land. If my memory serves me correctly, the Lib Dems were against developing Elmfield, which is now and has been throughout the pandemic a centre of vibrant activity. Any day it is literally full, reflecting the popularity of the facility. Our regeneration of the Wokingham Town Centre has kept it alive, free of the voids which other town centres have suffered. Again, if my memory serves me correctly, your former leader and your party was against redevelopment, but proposed no shops, but a dark warehouse from which goods could be collected. 150 million has been spent in the town centre, providing a cinema, car parking, swimming pool, new shops, a hotel, leisure centre, theatre, etc., etc., etc. We Conservatives have led in the Wokingham Town, Woodley, Early and Twyford. Every improvement has been opposed by the Lib Dems, who after the event have claimed responsibility. The Twyford Library was completely devoid of any Lib Dem involvement. It is a Tory of achievement of which I'm proud. Oh no, I do you a misjustice. The Lib Dem leader is very concerned about spending and would wish to curtail the presumably cancelling the library, carnival pool, etc., etc. Central to your question was increasing spending. The Lib Dems only see issues in terms of spending, and every proposal made increases it. Wokingham Town, despite COVID, is vibrant, and I entreat Wokingham Town Council to welcome shoppers and visitors to use it. You should be doing all in your power to revitalise this wonderful asset that the Tory Borough Council has developed. The residents expect it. It is truly good for our residents and Lib Dems in our opposition. I concur with the assertion that Lib Dem questions are whatever they are. Thank you very much, Imogen. The next question is question from Shah has withdrawn his question. So Lindsay Ferris.
Good evening. Yes, Lindsay Ferris, Leader of the Opposition and Leader of an increased Liberal Democrat group. Very pleased to be here. And I also want to thank you. I see you've read my article, although you disingenuously misquoted it. So I'll get on to my question. When you gave your budget speech in February this year, there was no mention of a recovery plan. You may remember I commented on this in my speech in response to your proposals. I have been through the current proposals and can see no budget commitments within the document, only a broad comment about working within financial restrictions of the council. That seems to confirm no specific financial allowance has been made to perform any of the proposals, such as they are, mentioned within the document. Is this document nothing more than an afterthought?
It is true about Lib Dem questions. Thank you, Lindsay, for your question. It will obviously surprise you to know that we've been working with our officers since the early months of lockdown in March 2020 on the Council's response to recovery. This predates your rhetoric at Council in February 2021 by about 10 months. Although quite rightly, our primary attention during the pandemic has been on our response and saving lives, there has been a shadow gold meetings chaired by a Deputy Chief Executive, which is focused on recovery. Work has been going on across the Council for over a year, and this document simply brings this together in a formal way. The only way in which I would refer to this document and the huge work that sits beside it as an afterthought is that throughout the pandemic, it has been the thought that we have had saving lives, communities and businesses. As for budgets for recovery, here are some financial commitments were incorporated the NTFP in February 2021. Completion of 150 million investment in Woking Town Centre, regeneration and recovery. Climate emergency investment in seeking to become carbon neutral as part of recovery, 71 million in 3 years. Investing in our contain and outbreak management plan to enable recovery over 2 million. 250,000 as initial pilot to support those with a low-level mental health issues to help those who need it recover from the impact of the pandemic. 160,000 over the next 2 years to enhance our approach to domestic abuse, which is another area which will need greater support as a result of the pandemic. As I said, these are just some. There are plenty more, and I could cite. However, more significantly, you're missing the fundamental point of this strategy. All of the council resources will be utilised with these pillars in mind, as these pillars are considered to be the most significant areas that need attending to in delivering successfully on our council plan. The recovery strategy is also clear on its status as being a flexible, dynamic, evolving strategy informed by the data and insight we gather along the way. No one can know all the specific issues and challenges our community will face over the next 5 years. You will be aware from the approach that we have taken to the pandemic, we will act clearly and decisively to do what needs to be done. We will target council resources to where it is most important and will not be shy in seeking additional budgetary resources if and where it is needed. Do you have a supplementary, Lindsay?
Yes, I think I can make a similar comment about responses to questions as well as you made earlier. What seems to be, I think you've missed the point of what we've been saying about the recovery, particularly the COVID recovery plan, because what you've mentioned mostly this evening is our activities which have been going on for 3, 4, 5 years. And we, as a result of the problem with COVID, have had a significant number of businesses struggling. A lot of people have been laid off.
Could we have the question, Lindsay, please?
And at the C&C
Could we have the question, Lindsay?
You admitted that it was a reactive
question, Lindsay.
decision. I don't consider what are you actually doing to deal with the extra requirements associated with having a COVID problem? We have all those extra problems. What you've all quoted about.
Could I have a question, please?
Yes. What is it extra that you are doing?
Thank you.
As a result of COVID.
Thank you. That took a long time coming.
Don't be sarky.
We generally live within the budget that we've set in the MTFP, and that's good financial management. I've always been rather appalled by the financial literacy of the opposition. We will come back to the executive or council if we need further budgetary additions to that envelope. So we will live within that envelope.
Just what I confirmed. You have done no extra work.
You don't have another question about Lindsay. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. Goodbye. Thank you for the questions. I think the last, another one. Sarah Kerr of Parry.
Thank you. Good evening. Who was involved in the decision-making process for the price increases at St Crispin's Leisure Centre that has led in some cases to a fourfold increase in cost for some users?
Good evening, Sarah. Thank you for your question. Within the existing terms and conditions for those that hold a membership with Places Leisure, or PFB for short, changes can be made to memberships, and at this point, members will be notified prior to any changes and can, if they wish, review their membership options or cancel their membership. Proposed price changes that are not deemed core pricing sessions, which are increased yearly as per inflation and agreed with the sports and leisure team, are put forward for discussion and review. And once agreed, PFP will initiate the changes in line with their terms and conditions. The change in cost relates to a legacy membership inherited by PFP from the previous contractor in May 2018. And not a current membership option that PFP offer within their pricing structure. The legacy memberships were honoured for over 3 years, whilst refurbishment and improvements works were carried out across all working sites. The membership implemented for those that were on a legacy One Life membership is not a rackets membership, as mentioned above, and there is no such membership that PFP offer. The implemented membership is excellent value when combined with usage of the gym, fitness classes, swimming, and 50% off racket sport usage. Racket sport hire prices has not increased since 1st of June 2019. Instead, the booking structure for members have been reviewed and amended in June 2021. The headline membership rate is £41 a month, unlimited use, and has not been increased this year, and there are no plans to review it until next year. On average, members book a racket court once or twice a week. The frequency of use ensures that membership is still excellent value. The members that were affected and have raised concern and are eligible were immediately transferred to a more suitable senior over 60s membership, benefiting from unlimited access to the gym, group exercise and classes, along with a 50% reduction on courts at St Crispin's Leisure Centre, and for only £29 a month. Recommendations are also encouraged for those members split the price of a squash court with their playing partner rather than paying for themselves, therefore reducing the racket usage by half. Places Leisure pricing remains extremely competitive, and in many areas versus others like-for-like leisure providers in the local area, for instance, Everyone Active in Bracknell and GLL in Reading. And we provide excellent value for money, in which we encourage the residents of Wokingham to use these fantastic facilities, and they are all the best in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a supplementary. I'm quite surprised by your answer. I mean, you've already highlighted that these price increases particularly affect squash players, as you're aware. We've actually crunched the numbers, and it's more expensive now to use the squash courts at St Crispin's than Wellington Health and Fitness Club, which
Sorry,
have much
Sarah,
better facilities.
it has to be a question.
It's coming to a question, and the point is, in order to frame the question, I'm making the point that a much better facility of Wellington Health and Fitness Club is actually cheaper than St Crispin's. And St Crispin's is a council-owned facility.
That's not a question.
So my question is, thank you very much, please don't interrupt, is how are you intending to fulfil the council's leisure strategy of increasing participation in sports and leisure activities when you price people out of using facilities run supposedly for public benefit?
Thank you, Sarah, for your supplementary question. I think that I did explain that these were legacy charges which were not there. People enjoyed free sessions off peak, and those sessions have lasted for 3 years, and we don't intend to carry those up. And the PFP have implemented a price for those off-peak sessions. And squash is a fantastic game. Unfortunately, you know, we have to be competitive, and you know, we are, as you are aware, Sarah, Woking Borough Council is the lowest funded authority in the country, and we rely solely on the increased income that we get through our council tax paid by our fantastic residents, and we want to use these funds wisely to provide our sports and facilities which are the best in the country. As such, all of our residents to enjoying these facilities through paying the appropriate and competitive prices. So I don't know where you're going to get your four price increases. That just, you know, really, I'm at a loss to understand that.
I'll send you an email with the cost breakdown and proof that Wellington Health and Fitness is actually cheaper.
Thank you, Sarah.
Didn't answer my question.
Michael Furniture. Michael Furniture.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Hello there. Yes, my question is to the Executive Member for Planning and Enforcement and relating to Revenue Monitoring 2020 to 2021 outturn. The report shows that there were real pressures placed on the council finances last year, which we nonetheless were able to handle successfully due to strong financial management. Can you tell me what the plans are for progress on the local plan this year and how this will affect the current budget in light of the continuing COVID pressures? Thank you.
Evening, Michael.
Hello there.
Evening. The review of the adopted plans is being undertaken to ensure the council's planning policies continue to be effective in managing decisions on development proposals. The council is currently involved in the process of preparing 2 local plans, the Central and East Berkshire Joint Minerals and Waste Local Plan and the Local Plan Update. The Central and East Joint Minerals and Waste Local Plan is being undertaken in partnership with Reading Borough Council, Bracknell Forest Council and the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. The plan was submitted for examination in February and we are awaiting the programme from the appointed inspector. The programme for the local plan update was unfortunately needed to be changed. This reflects the need to revisit and consult on a revised strategy to manage the growth following the extension of the emergency planning arrangements around AWE, Burfield in 2020. The change in circumstances meant that the strategy outlined in the draft plan from February last year is no longer practically achievable. Consultation on the revised strategy for the local plan will be held this autumn. This will formally be set out in an update and the local development scheme due for consideration by the executive in July next month. We all recognise the importance of preparing new local plans to ensure we continue to have effective planning policies. Budgets already exist for both plans, which are sufficient to cover the costs of the preparation, including procuring all the evidence. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, do you have a supplementary, Michael?
I was really waiting for the leader of the council to invite me in, but no, I was kind of waiting there for that. No, in view of that full comprehensive answer, Councillor Smith, no, I don't. No, it sounds really, really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. That had been all the questions. Can we get to the business of the day, which is the first issue is the WBC Recovery Strategy, which I think is up to me. I'm delighted to be presenting this strategy recovery. It's a dynamic strategy which has been worked up during the pandemic, and most of the financial consequences have been included in the MTFP. When reading the strategy, it's good to bear in mind that like beverage, we were looking at what we could do to ensure recovery some 12 months ago. Whilst we could never have predicted the course of the pandemic, it was clear that it would do damage to our borough and its economy. So parallel to the team considering the pandemic, there's been a team working on the aftermath. Decisions taken during the pandemic were done in consideration as to their effect on the long term. We inevitably got some things wrong, and we do get some things to test out the effect. However, the overarching was to ensure that our borough was not financially affected badly. We worked very hard to ensure that we were giving the maximum support speedily to our communities and businesses, but also to ensure the government was equally speedy in recompensing us where appropriate. And if that was not the case, we had the strategy to fill the hole. I'm really delighted to say that our finances are in rude health and act as a platform for our recovery. Most of the actions are built into the medium-term financial plan, and if we needed more, we shall come to the executive with supplementary estimates. Also, the council is very stable with no other massive concerns. As we hopefully come to the end of the disruption, I can say we find ourselves in the council and the borough in better shape than we expected. Unemployment, particularly amongst the unskilled and semi-skilled, is less bad than we expected. It seems also the towns are more vibrant than we expected. So we are able to confirm a medium-term recovery package contained in the paper around 9 pillars and 3 key principles. And I commend the recovery strategy to the executive. John.
Chairman, could you just confirm that we have a process which is we've been piloting over the last 12 months with regards to supplementary budgeting, which we've used wherever we've needed it. We found £1.2 million in January when we knew that there was a second wave. We used that to help with PPP and preschool. Could you please just confirm that is now the policy of the council with regards to the way it budgets?
Indeed, I can. Gregor?
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment on this recovery plan, if I may. We know that COVID has brought with it a reduction in the particulates that adversely affect our air. And we also know that it's come with an increase in home working for a lot of people, which is net benefits for our environment. I'm hugely pleased to see that this recovery plan is putting an additional focus on maintaining that lower particulate rate and also working with our residents, with our local businesses to maintain some of that home working going forward, as there's a great carbon benefit for us. I also hugely welcome the fact that this council is making investments into mental health, I hugely welcome the fact that this council is making massive investments into mental health. We know that this is going to be an area of concern for a lot of our residents in the coming years post-COVID. And I really welcome the fact that this council has been spending the time during this crisis to actually think about what it's going to do next, how it's going to recover, and make sure that as soon as we start emerging from this crisis, we're ready to start putting a recovery kind of plan in place rather than just creating one at that point. So I also commend this report to everybody.
Thank you. I'm very much in favour of this report. I just wanted to point out that during COVID, we actually accelerated the amount of road repairs we're doing. when it wasn't going to inconvenience people and when there was tarmac and workers available to do it, which had the dual benefits of keeping people employed and not annoying people when we were maintaining the roads by creating queues. And just because it doesn't feature in here, we will still be continuing to maintain the roads and spend money on making sure that there is less and less congestion.
Any more? No. Can I have your agreement to this recovery strategy? All in favour? Thank you. Moving on, John, revenue and capital.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask you and the members to bear with me, because I would like very much to put this into the context of what we've been doing. I mean, historically and ongoing, we've been the lowest funded unitary council in the UK with regards to government grants. This has meant over the past 10 years, we've had to reduce our spending in real terms by £35 million. How we've done that, and still ended up with high levels of services and general reserves, which stood at the start of the pandemic at 12.4 million, some 3 times that of some of our neighbours. We've achieved this with focus on service and giving value for money to all residents. It became very clear early on cutting services, although would reduce cost, was a route to diminishing returns, both for residents and the council, and would eventually end up with nobody being happy. So we embarked upon a number of programmes which would not just deliver existing services, but would enhance these services. To enable this, we invested in things such as housing, setting up our own housing companies, which not only deliver affordable homes, but make a profit, which could be reinvested back into the services, as we are now, and as well as paying its costs. And I'm happy to confirm this is happening now. We also invested in Wokingham Town when nobody else would, because we believed our towns are important to residents. I'm happy to report the cost is currently being met by the rent and the house sales. So if you like, a free town centre. On top of that is our commercial investments, some of which are in town centres such as Twyford and Woodley, all part of supporting these important areas in the borough, which will see benefits of further investments going forward, working with both town and parish councils. There is no question COVID has had an impact, but not as much as you would have thought, and they continue to perform well, no doubt because we've been very careful in the sectors we have invested in, such as supermarket and warehousing. These investments, along with the profits from our company and treasury investments currently paying very small returns, we've generated over £1 million to be poured back into the council's services, and all this after paying the council's borrowing costs, and not just for these areas. Our capital programme has continued to deliver and continued on course. Our record speaks for itself. 5 new primary schools, 1 new secondary school, 6 major road projects, the Arborfield Relief Road delivered on time, new bridge at Barkham, Winnish and Chimfield Relief Road, the start of the Southern and Northern Relief Roads, and not to mention the Station Link Road. On top of which, we've had over 700 of new affordable homes and social homes completed in the last 2 years in the borough. We've also embarked upon the largest affordable and social housing project ever undertaken by this council, costing £100 million, which is a regeneration replacement of Gorse Ride in Finchampton, delivering over 200 new homes. And these are just a few of the council's recent achievements, with more to come, all around climate and designed to deliver additional green space in the borough as well, to ensure that Wokingham continues to be a great place to live. During the pandemic, one of the first and most pressing issues that faced the council was to ensure that the most vulnerable, the homeless, were looked after and taken off the streets. And it was to great relief to me that we were able to reduce homelessness and reduced it, our rough sleepers to only 1 individual within 2 weeks of lockdown. The impact of COVID on business is continuing, and it's important, given our limited funds, that the government provided us with additional much needed business grants and business rates released to pass on. And I'm happy to report the government stepped up to the plate. It was essential we passed this on quickly, and rather than furlough staff like some councils, we redeployed. I'm acutely aware that this is an ongoing struggle, and additional support on top of the £70 million already paid out is still available. One area we were determined to keep on track, and that was the action to eradicate poverty and deprivation in the borough. extending to affordable homes, homelessness, rough sleepers, and general support to lift people out of poverty. I'm glad to report, due to the financial control and investments made by the council, it allowed us to deliver support such as PPE, food to the shielded, and a host of other support packages, but now also allows the council to offer support and concessions to the poorest and most vulnerable in the borough. It has been frustrating to listen to the lies and rumours about the council's finances. During this time when people have had many fears, illness, loss of job and income, and in some cases, a deterioration in mental health, well-being. And we actually added £1.2 million into the council's budget last year to help with vaccination and related issues. It's hardly the action of a council that's going broke. With families not being able to meet with the most at risk, such as grandparents, statements to scaremonger at such time is not only responsible, but lacks any sense of feeling or respect for those who benefit and rely on the many services delivered by Wokingham Borough Council. In addition, it destroys the morale of our wonderful officers. Wokingham Borough Council, in addition, rest assured, my intention is to continue to run the council's finances in such a way it creates savings and investments, which makes money available. So when we get back to normal, whatever that's going to look like, the council will still be able to deliver and improve those services. And at the same time, having supported residents of the borough through this very difficult and challenging time. Whilst we've been responding to the pandemic, we have been ensuring those in most need receive service and the services and support required. This has required funding over and above the council's business as usual budget. And this has been extremely challenging. To ensure the needs of our vulnerable are met and trying to manage the council's resources responsibly. Fortunately, we came into this pandemic with a strong financial standing, created through many years of robust and sound business-like approach to the council's finances over many years. This provided income critical to funding our response. Well, contrary to some of the dramatic and vastly inaccurate statements about the council's finances, we have always borrowed sensibly and continue to do so, delivering affordable homes, forward funding roads and schools in advance of development, as well as funding projects such as our very successful town centre. We have used this to generate income and continue to have assets far in excess of the value than our borrowing liabilities. And the report in front of you tonight just shows how well we have responded to the challenge we have faced during the pandemic. And as you can see, we've come in under budget on business as usual at £1.2 million. And overall, even including COVID-19, we're under budget by £800,000. We have managed our capital spend with a shortfall of only £3 million out of a budget of £172 million. The HRA is in surplus by £500,000. This means we have general reserves standing at 10.4 million and 1.4 million in the HRA. The only area where we've seen an increase in cost is the dedicated school grant, and this reflects the increase in cost of children with special needs. And even with the opposition of the other political parties in the council, we have worked with the DfE and plan to deliver additional in-borough provision to arrest these costs going forward. The credit of this performance must go to Susan Parsonage, Graham Evers and the senior management team, and the commitment across the council by all staff to deliver services on time and in some cases at or below budget, with no reduction in the quality of those services. At the same time, supporting residents and the excellent contributions from the charity sector. I would say those who sneer and criticise with questions as to what the council did and did not do to look to the lead we took with regards to refusal of untested hospital discharge into our homes, the commitment to free school meals during the holidays throughout the year, a 1.2 injection into the revenue budget during January this year to help PPE and support other activities in our community, such as support for preschool, and help offered to residents and tenants alike allowing them to reschedule and delay payments owed to the council. And yes, this includes the businesses in the town centres, who are all tenants of the council. To be fair, to all, not all opposition have made the same unfounded criticism. And I was delighted to see this week, at this week's overview and scrutiny meeting, recognised the council has handled the rollout of the grants, and praised the staff for that. And for that, I thank Councillor Jones and others at that meeting for recognising the effort put in. As we come out of the shadow of COVID-19, you will see other initiatives. We are financially well placed to pursue the goals to eradicate poverty and provide high quality services for all residents of the borough, and will continue to do so. After all, it's the residents' money and it needs to be spent to the benefit of the residents, and Wokingham will remain a great place to live. As I've said on many occasions, a council that is broke is no use to anyone. Thank you.
Pauline.
Thank you, John. That was a really good summary. Seeing as you and I and most of the rest of us saw many scurrilous leaflets saying the debt of the council was about to be 700 million, and then in the next leaflet it was 750 million. I'd just like you to confirm what the debt of the council is at the moment, please.
The last report I saw, Pauline, the net debt of this council is £131 million.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things you've said. I mean, I've sat here over the past year and talked about, needing to buy PPE privately when we couldn't actually get it supplied by central government. The resource that's, things like the vaccination centre, everything we've done basically to fight COVID costs money. And it's only been possible because of the financial position of the council. So I couldn't agree with anything further than what you just said. It's just simply not possible if we don't control the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. What I've heard so far, Mr. Chairman, is absolutely astounding. An astute management of our finances. Well done, John. And very commendable, because you're under budget, which is a great music to my ears, and you carry healthy reserves. So well done, and I wholeheartedly support this report.
So can I take the reports, the two reports, the revenue monitoring report outturn? John, any particular issues there?
Yes, I just want to make it very clear. Although we are rolling forward at £7.4 million, that is actually included in 2021 budget. So it's not an additional 7.6, just in case anybody, we've actually included that in the budget. I think that's very important. And there is also an estimate, which is £16,000, which is for digital infrastructure, which is to support the infrastructure that we've had to put in place. And also to note, as I spoke about the housing revenue account and the dedicated school grant.
Can I take those two, that report as noted? So it's to note the outturn position of the revenue budget and the level of imbalances in respect to the general fund, housing revenue account and schools block. Agree the general fund carry forward requests of 7.44 million as set out in the appendix B to the report, and approve supplementary estimate of 16,000 for digital infrastructure group. Everybody in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, John. Capital.
I haven't got a 3-page speech for the capital, you'll be glad to know. I did cover it off in my speech. Again, I mean, say this is to note where we are. I guess we managed to spend £171 million during the year, even with COVID. We're only £3 million below our target, which I think, again, is thanks to the officers, the activity that we did on the roads as well, that continued. And so I think I just would like the recommendations, which is to note the outturn position, to approve and note the proposed fourth quarter carry forward, which happens every year because we never get to spend all of our capital budget because it's not impossible. Note which quarter four budget adjustments for the capital programme, which include a 4.2 to ring fence capital budget, proceeding to forward into the current year, 2020-21, and the acceleration of the delivery of the road infrastructure project. Reduction in capital budget, programme budget of 114 across schools devolved problem due to the reduction in funding from the devolved school grant. So if I could have support for that, please, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So Parry, implementing the leisure strategy, page 107.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This report basically begs approval from the executive for two fantastic items that we want to deliver. One is the boxing fitness hub. The local research of the current fitness trends identified that combat sports and fitness sessions attendances are on the rise and is something that is growing, and this will grow in the borough as well. And in line with the town centre regeneration, an opportunity for a high-end fitness studio with classes as its main attraction to fit in on brand with local developments around the town became available. Focus will be on combat exercises, classes and free box sessions. So I'd like funding to be approved for that one. The second item on that report is the Laurel Park 3G pitch, which following the outcome of data from the current playing strategy shows that Wokingham has over 540 football teams and are in need of an additional 3G pitch because this was such a high demand. And Laurel Park's pitches were rated as poor within the strategy. Maintenance works have commenced on the pitches to bring back the level back to good quality and in line with the large use of the youth and adult teams. It is proposed to install a new 3G pitch and additional parking so that players do not have to travel outside of the borough so that we can reduce our carbon footprint at the same time, Mr. Chairman. So I seek approval for the recommendations on page 107. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very, very pleased to see the proposal to put a 3G pitch on Laurel Park. The pitches there at the moment are in a bit of a state. Some of them get very wet. And I know Laurel Park FC, which has got a huge number of different teams running, will be absolutely delighted with this. And I know the council's been working closely with them to make sure it's specified correctly. Just a couple of thoughts from me. The residents in Mayfield have a lot of problems with people parking and with traffic on match days, people blocking their drives and that sort of stuff. So I'd be interested to see what you can do to help this process whilst you're building the 3G pitch. And the other thing, I just wondered whether you could possibly manage to sneak in an AstroTurf cricket square as well. We're very short of cricket facilities. There's only one cricket pitch in Early, which is owned by the town council. That's on Solihull, but it's a grass pitch and it's not probably as good as it could be. So it'd be really useful if you could manage to squeeze an AstroTurf cricket pitch in as well, if that's possible.
Thank you, Pauline. I think those are excellent suggestions. Parking will improve around there with the 3D pitch project. Approximately 40 to 50 parking slots are planned, subject to planning permission, of course. And the additional cricket square that you are recommending or proposing is a fantastic idea because we are very, very short of cricketing facilities within the borough. And I will definitely look at the possibility of including that square cricket pitch and improving the parking due to the Laurel Park project itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parry, at 6:30 tomorrow morning, I will be training with an ex-professional middleweight boxer. I've been doing it for almost 10 years now. I am a massive advocate of boxing, particularly for what it can do for your mental health as well as your physical health. I welcome bringing a boxing club into Woking and into our community. I also particularly welcome the introduction of the self-defense classes, particularly for women. Can I ask that you make a commitment that firstly, these classes will be prioritised as part of the club's activities, that they will be well promoted and run at various times throughout the day to make sure that anybody that wants them is capable of getting to them, and also make sure that they are well publicised, particularly within our schools, because it's the younger women in our community in particular, when they leave our community for various different reasons, that need to have that skill.
Thank you, Gregor, and you have my commitment, and I totally support what you've said so far. And it's a fast-growing sport, and there's a lot of demand for it. And I'm sure the hub will be well supported by our residents, including our young ladies and women that need it most. Thank you.
Harry, just to say well done. The Wokingham's leisure facilities are really second to none and improving by the day. Could I have your agreement to the three recommendations which Parry is making? That is the new boxing fitness hub in the first floor unit, Peach Place, managed by WBC Sport and Leisure, with its associated charges and costs as set out in Schedule 1, the borrowing of 630,000 for the hub, which will be funded by income for the activities, and a new 3G pitch and additional car parking located at Laurel Park, and borrowing of 300,000. Everybody agreement? Unanimous. Thank you very much. 119. So I just sort of do a little preamble and then hand over to you, Bill. One of the huge pieces of work which we are doing this year is to addressing resident safety and environment, which has become increasingly important, particularly in these times of COVID, where people have spent most of their times at home. Progressively over the last 2 years, we have strengthened the community safety partnership by appointing a community safety manager, a domestic violence manager, and an antisocial behaviour manager. We published tonight our community safety strategy, identifying our future areas of work. At the same time, we're repatriating environmental health, trading standards and licensing, together with more than 150 pieces of legislation. The Licensing Appeals Committee, which we'll hear in after, called the Licensing, Trading Standards and Appeals Panel, will take every service and develop a Woking Borough Council policy for that service. This policy will be dynamic so that it addresses changing circumstances. This is a huge piece of work which will take several years to complete, but the starting off point is what we do now. The CSP, Environmental Health, Trading Standards and Licensing will work increasingly with our health partners and towns and parishes, so we eventually present the resident with a consistent approach which is joined up. We will create a responsive unit of we will create a responsive and out-of-hours service which is being designed to work with a community safety partnership, housing enforcement and localities teams. It will provide the service our residents need to keep them safer and healthier and happier. Tonight, I'm delighted to say that we are able to address the priorities for the community safety partnership. They are generic in listening to the needs and concerns of local residents and taking action, intervening early and preventing issues escalating, working together to protect vulnerable residents. The 5 delivery areas is working with the communities to deal with crime and antisocial behaviour hotspots, reduce harm caused by domestic abuse, reduce incidents of serious violence and knife crime, tackle exploitation of children, young people and vulnerable adults, and reduce crimes of residential burglary and theft from vehicles. Bill, over to you.
Thank you very much. The Community Safety Partnership Strategy was deferred from our exec meeting on the 25th of March. This was deferred to allow longer public and stakeholder consultation. Our current community strategy came to an end in March 2021, and legislation states that the CSP must have in place a strategy for, as has been mentioned, crime disorder, including ASB, antisocial behaviour, misuse of drugs, alcohol and other substances, reduction of reoffending in Wokingham Borough Council, or in the Wokingham Borough. I won't say we've got the offending in the Borough Council, and a system of monitoring the strategy for effectiveness. On December the 10th, 2020, a development workshop was held with all the key stakeholders, including a predominance of members and officers of Wokingham Borough Council, as can be seen on Appendix 2, page 77 of the report. The new strategy was publicly consulted on with residents and stakeholders for a period of 5 weeks, and this ended on the 31st of March 2021. Although I was not in the post at that time, I can state that Wokingham Borough Council had a major input into the preparation of this strategy. In fact, it's our strategy, and we are the authors. The new strategy is required to be in place on the 1st of July 2021. Furthermore, this strategy is in place until 2024, but will be reviewed annually, with again considerable input from Wokingham Borough Council. This is an excellent strategy and will go a long way to deal with any concerns of our residents and reinforce the fact that Wokingham is a great place to live, work and to bring up our children. I would like the executive to endorse this strategy to allow it to be implemented on July the 4th. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions? No? Everybody in favour? Thank you. Thank you. Harry, the commercial hospitality opportunity for Dinton Pastures Country Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to commence a contract opportunity to commercially drive Dinton Pastures hospitality premises, which will result in outstanding customer experience, innovative food, drink offers, and increased income for the council. This concession contract, current contract will commence, this concession contract will commence in 2022, April of this next year, and will be based on a 5-year contract with a possibility of another 5-year extension. The tender will be publicly available and bids will be reviewed against the set measurables scoring matrix. Candidates shortlisted will be invited to pitch their business cases to a panel, and the winning tender awarded the hospitality contract for the Dinton Pastures. This is an exciting opportunity to develop and realise Wokingham Borough Council's commercial ambitions whilst delivering excellent customer service. This approach will enable innovative and aspiring bids to enable the provision of an outstanding hospitality venue in the borough. And Dinton Pastures, as you know, Mr. Chairman, has some of the best fishing and water sports in the region, and it attracts thousands of visitors annually. This year, the new Dinton Activity Centre will also open, and there will be increased customer demand from now on and in the future for a new and imaginative hospitality offers. Currently, there is one cafe at Dinton Pastures Country Park, which is the Dragonfly Cafe, and one upcoming cafe which forms part of the new activity centre. Both facilities have great internal and external footprints, and these will be maximised to ensure exceptional customer satisfaction and deliverability of service. So I ask the executive to approve the recommendation on the top of page 108, I believe.
Everybody happy? Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Barry. I had the pleasure of cycling past the new activity centre 3 times at the weekend because I got lost. But I just wondered if you got any idea of the timescale for opening, because it looks absolutely fantastic.
We are hopefully opening this. There's a date now, so that's the 11th of September, the official opening, but soft opening end of July.
Thank you, Parry. I look forward to it.
John?
Sorry, obviously we're changing gear at Dinton Pastures, and you talk about two cafes. Is there any opportunity of delivering a restaurant for use in the evenings? I'm pretty sure in its setting it would be very, very successful.
Thank you, John. I think that's, I mean, I call the facilities that are going to be actually bid for innovative and imaginative. And part of that is a restaurant where the Dragonfly cafe is at the moment, which is much bigger than the one upstairs, which will be in the Denton Activity Centre. So there will be a cafe in the, this is a proposal that there'll be a cafe upstairs in the activity centre, but a high-class restaurant where the Dragonfly cafe is at the moment, which is much bigger in space. So yes, that is within my thoughts, and I'll be personally getting involved with the bids there.
Wayne?
Yes, Harry and I went round Dinton a few weeks ago, and I mean, that is the DAC, the activity centre, is looking quite special. But you're right, John, you're absolutely right. The setting in the evening could be spectacular, and it will be spectacular. And I think it does lend itself to giving Dinton a new dimension. We've always had a very successful cafe, but this just gives us another dimension that during the day that the food can be extended to people with their children using all the facilities, and then during early evening and throughout the evening it can be used for quite a special restaurant. So I think this is a good move, and I think, you know, it'd be interesting to see who comes forward to put in a bid. So yes, you have my full support.
Thank you.
There being no other questions, the recommendation is asked to commence the commencing the procurement process. Is everybody in favour? Last but not least, Pauline, on enhanced partnership.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm asking for approval here to start work on an enhanced partnership under the Bus Services Act, which will improve our working relationships with the various bus providers in the borough. That's not just Reading buses, but it's a lot of other bus companies as well, including the voluntary bus companies. The first stage of it was we need to give notice of an intent to form the enhanced partnership. That's not legally binding. We need to get an agreement out of that. The legally binding bit is the actual enhanced partnership itself, which has got very, very tight timescales for the whole thing. And we'll bring back the actual enhanced partnership itself back once the working party has worked through it. And also we've talked to the various different bus suppliers, and it'll be coming back to the executive before it's agreed.
Pauline, can I just ask you, bus usage has clearly been significantly impacted by COVID, but we also know that modal shift is one of the most important things that we have to do in order to achieve our climate aims. So 2 questions for you. Firstly, what happens if we don't sign up to an enhanced partnership? And secondly, what opportunities does signing up to an enhanced partnership give us over and above what we've already got?
Thank you, Gregor. What happens if we don't at least give notice of an enhanced partnership is that we lose our COVID bus funding, which we've been getting through from the government to actually keep the bus services propped up whilst only a very small number of people have used them. So that would be a bit of a disaster for us. So we need to get this agreed by the 30th of June, which is not very long now, in order to do that and in order to protect the bus services grant that we've got at the moment under COVID. The opportunities it gives us the opportunity to try and influence the bus providers a bit better. At the moment, we have very, very little say in the bus services. There are bus services that come into the borough that if they're oversubscribed or whatever, they cut the borough boundary. I hope this will give us an opportunity to get some more influence on the bus routes, both commercial and subsidised, and also get a better working relationship with some of the major bus companies in the area. So I'm hopeful it's an opportunity, as long as they take it in the same spirit.
There's no numbers in this, Pauline, so I assume there is no financial commitment to this, other than us getting our grant for supporting buses. Yeah, the cost of actually drafting the bus partnerships paid for by the DFT, so that's not a cost to us, and I'm hoping that there will be no cost in future. We'll see.
Just a quick question, Boyd. Will this give us more negotiating power with some of the rural areas where some of the services, as you know, have been taken away by some bus companies because they just don't want to do them anymore?
I hope so. I hope we can expand some of the thoughts of the bus companies to cover wider than just sort of core services. I can't guarantee it, but certainly we'll be going in there asking to get some more influence. We've also come up with ideas. I mean, we can provide ideas about how routes could change in order to increase the usage. And I think this is a really good opportunity to speak to the big bus companies rather than just receiving the service that they provide.
So the recommendation is the executive agrees to Woking Borough Council giving notice to establishing an enhanced partnership under the Bus Services Act 2017. Those in favour? Thank you. All unanimous. And that being the final piece of business, thank you for attending, if you did. And this might well be the last virtual executive as well, first and last. Thank you very much. Good night.